Each and every day the world causes us to tremble, and some days we feel very afraid. Each and every day the world broadcasts messages of fear and death, and every day these messages manage to weasel their way into our hearts. The visits to the doctor, the medical procedures begin to mount up. Our charts chronicle how fragile our bodies really are, and our hearts begin to tremble, trying to come to terms with this fragility. Unexpected events or memories invade our lives, and our vulnerability erupts in our shaky hands and unpredictable emotions. I and so many others have had a time of trembling in this way, rocked by memories, events long locked away. It's terrifying. And that's just what happens in normal times. In these strange days, we sit alone and watch over the world, cut off from normality, listening to the numbers of those going into ICU, feeling as if we are struggling to breathe with them, our chests broken in by the pain and grief. The world causes us to tremble, and sometimes we live afraid. We are afraid because we are fragile, imperfect, solitary human beings in a world where darkness, disease, indifference, and death are often too close and too powerful, and they stalk us too forcefully through our lives. Today we absolutely tremble because a virus is shaking our world. In these days we are perhaps closer to the heart of what Jesus' friends went through, and even closer to Jesus' own suffering. The women who came to the tomb had witnessed it all. No doubt they were there when Jesus was betrayed. They were there when Jesus was crucified. Mary Magdalene and the other Mary sat opposite the tomb after a great stone was rolled across the entrance. And no doubt they were trembling. But then as day dawned, an angel of God shook the earth. Descending from heaven, the light was almost too much to bear as the angel rolled back the stone and sat on it. And the angel said to the women, as messengers of God always do, "Do not be afraid." As this Easter day dawns, the angel speaks to our hearts. Do not be afraid. And in our trembling, we don't know whether to shout back, "How dare you?" or laugh in the angel's face. Do not be afraid. Are you serious? How can I live in this world and not tremble? And there it is, stubbornly right there in the text for the women at the tomb, and for us, this ludicrous, unbelievable pronouncement of the angel, do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. I know that you are looking for Jesus who was crucified. He's not here, for he has been raised from the dead. Come and see the place where he lay. And just in case the women were too stunned to get it. And just standing there numb, the angel says, "Go quickly, tell the disciples, he has been raised from the dead. This is my message for you." And this is our great joy. This is the great good news for us and for the world. A simple sentence that cracks open the certainty of fear and trembling. Jesus has been raised from the dead. In our fear and in our certainty, we can be slow to see. We can be slow to understand what God is about. But Jesus, in this life, in this dying, and in his resurrection, acts out God's intention for us and for all creation. Life, new life, abundant life. Life lived in bodies, life lived in relationship and touch and love. Love will not give in to hatred. Light will not be overwhelmed by the darkness. Life will not be stopped by death. God persistently, always, and everywhere works for life. Those who broker death will not defeat life. No suffering will have the final word. New life will emerge from the grip of death by the power of God's love. Do not be afraid. Today, Jesus meets us at the tomb, the place where God acts in new, surprising, and unexpected ways. God acts at the tomb in the midst of our fear, and something truly new happens. The tomb becomes a place where great joy wells up in the pool of our sorrow, where good news cracks open the hard crust of our fear, where our fragile, numb souls are gathered into the power of life and love that is God at work. Jesus tells the women and us, do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. God's insistence on life meets us in our trembling. God's love for us, for our bodies, for the world is stronger than death. God's love is strong enough to breathe new life into us and make us bold today. Bold enough to worship God in this world right now. Bold enough to sing our alleluias from our couches. Bold enough to tell the story and promise our children and our grandchildren that there will be believers, a church to share God's great joy with them. Today we will still be in the middle of this pandemic. Tomorrow we will still be in the middle of this pandemic. And as long as we live in this world, there will be death and tombs. We live in a world where we sometimes tremble. And we also know that Jesus has been raised from the dead. And so with the boldness of faith, we can affirm, the Prince of Darkness grim, we tremble not for him. People of God, hear the good news this Easter morning. Do not be afraid. Christ is risen. Christ is risen indeed. Amen.